Huge changes for Mercedes W14 in 2023. So we're going to be going through that in today's video and 4 other stories. So make sure to like this video, and if you want more Mercedes F1 content like this, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hitting that red button down below. But let's get straight into the first story, because Mercedes predict that they will be in a very strong place in 2023 with their W14 car. Mercedes strategy director James Vowles believes the team will be in a very strong place in 2023 with the work they will do over winter. Having started Formula One's new era with producing car with a particularly bumpy ride in the W13, Lewis Hamilton and George Russell both struggled to get through a race weekend smoothly, with Hamilton in particular looking significant pain at the Mexico Grand Prix, where the porpoising in the car suffered a period at its worst. The 7-time world champion opted to experiment with setups to try and find solutions, and while new teammate Russell did so to an extent, he continued to mop up top 5 results on a consistent basis as the team worked on their issues. There was still a lot of underlying pace disadvantage to both Ferrari and Red Bull for much of the season though, but Mercedes gradually reeled in their opponents, particularly on the race pace, with Hamilton and Russell putting up stronger fights for victories as the year progressed. This ultimately culminated in Russell's first ever race victory at Interlagos, with Hamilton recovering from contract with Max Verstappen to make it a Mercedes 1-2 at the penultimate race of the season, only missing out to Ferrari for second in the constructors' standings by 39 points at the end of the grueling season. Vowles acknowledged that there is plenty of work to do on both bases at Brackley and Brixworth for the team to hit the ground running with the W14. It is rumored that there will be a lot of floor changes made to the car and also to the chassis from pre-season testing onwards, but explained that the tools at Mercedes' disposal combined with their work ethic should see them come back fighting next year. Don't think you can truly now know, or even across the winter state, that we know everything about the W13, Vowles explained in the team's post-Abu Dhabi debrief. Yeah, there have been some ups and downs, and very much so that's a part of what I meant by this car has items and we believe we understand, and some of them are still not fully explained as a result of that. But if you look at the direction moving forward, the gaps to the front, especially on race pace, we made huge amounts of progress, and you only do that by understanding where your problems are, working on them, and working as a team. We will be adding a lot of things from the W13 into the W14 and making a lot of huge changes that will set this car into a whole new stratosphere. It is enough to win next year, which is really where the question goes. The confidence we have is that we now have the tools, our wind tunnel tools, our development tools, and even performance tools here in the organization producing performance, which is more than our competitors. It's allowing us to move further forward relative to them. There is still a void though, and Abu Dhabi really showed that there has to be some caught up across the winter, and I think we are in a very good process and system in place to do that. The development that you saw across the season will continue across the winter, and I think we'll be in a very strong place next year. So Vowles had a lot to say, and I think it is fantastic to hear these things. When it comes to the 2023 car, it is definitely going to be something special, and I love how by the end of the season, guys, you really did see the W13 come into full fruition. You really saw them do a great job when it came to what they are able to achieve, and I think those little things that they made when it came to the adjustments, they are going to be bringing to the W14 and even more over. So there is a lot of exciting things to hear about this car, especially for next season, because Mercedes could be back at the top very, very quick. So getting into the second story, Mercedes praises Russell that he did an incredibly good job. Mercedes have offered its first end of the season assessment of George Russell's performance in 2022, praising the Briton for ticking all of the team's boxes and doing an incredibly good job. Russell moved to Mercedes after a 3-year stint with Williams and was immediately on par with the illustrious teammate Lewis Hamilton, but it was anything but clear sailing for the talented 24-year-old who, like his teammate, was hindered by the technical disadvantages embedded in the Mercedes complex W13. While the team relied on Hamilton's experience to help unravel the mysteries of its bucking Bronco's Silver Arrow, Russell was left to perform to the best of his car's ability, and he did so while fulfilling his teammates' expectations, according to Mercedes chief James Vowles. I think on a whole, it doesn't really have to tell us you this, but George did a very good job this year. He's against the best in the world, and that's your reference. What is very clear is that at the beginning of the year, when we had a car that was difficult, Lewis was using his wealth of experience to help us in order to improve the car and really move us forward as part of the team. George in that period of time was just really focused on learning, embedding himself into the team, and he scored a number of results really that benefited him as a result. In Brazil, at the penultimate round of 2022 championship, Russell went on to deliver to Mercedes its only win of the season and his maiden Grand Prix victory. But beyond the young guns results, Mercedes Mercedes has been impressed all year with Russell's ease in striking all of the objectives, on the track and off it, laid out by the German outfit. Irrespective, his qualifying pace I think is with a tenth of where Lewis ended up, and his race pace was very, very strong throughout the year. So we all know George Russell did a fantastic job, and he was named Mr. Consistent for a reason. And I think it's fantastic to see what he was able to do, especially when it comes to how Mercedes did so far this season. So moving on into the next story, the third story is the W13 will have a special place in the Mercedes collection. Toto Wolff says his Mercedes team's infamous W13 Silver Arrow will have a special place in the Brackley squad collection, although one located very far back. After dominating F1 for the better part of 8 years, Mercedes came close to concluding its 2022 campaign without a single winner's trophy to add to its massive array of silverware. Fortunately, George Russell saved the team's honor by winning in Brazil, but Wolff's standout memory from 2022 will be his team's relentless struggles to overcome the complexities and port-racing issues of Mercedes' reluctant Charger, a car that forced the team's engineers to burn a massive amount of midnight oil just to understand the underlying problems, let alone solve them. I think this car will always have a special place in our collection, very far back, commented Wolff. But I think that's hopefully the next few years will do her justice, because the learning curve with that car was enormous. Our fundamental understanding of aerodynamic, vehicle dynamics correlation has really gone through a step of change of learning, and I think it won't be forgotten as a car that dominated the Brazilian Grand Prix. And I think this isn't very actually important to understand when it comes to things like this, where Mercedes may be losing. It can definitely be seen as a point of reference in order to learn from it and in order to become better. I really do think that if Mercedes want to continue to their winning ways, they definitely needed that season to shift them back into gear, and the 2022 season was definitely that. They are definitely going to come back stronger, and getting into the fourth story of today's video, Charles Leclerc also believes that in 2023, Mercedes will be in the fight. In the last decade, Mercedes have dominated the F1 for most of it. However, in 2022, the Silver Arrows was nowhere near the title contention, or was just a shadow of its former self. They can only get one win out of the entire 22 races, yet they didn't fall much from their previous grace. So when it came to Charles Leclerc, he said, "I do believe that Mercedes will be in the fight. We've seen how much they've improved from the first race to the last race, and I think they understood what they did wrong. This is normally a sign that it will go better, so hopefully it will be a 3-team fight next year." This assumption is coming after the pace gain in Mercedes by the end of the season, and their performance in Brazil showed that they could nail the new regulations and be back at the top. And I think this is really important to understand when it comes to Mercedes and how their season went so far this year. I do think that there are a lot of things to be learned from, and they are making those adjustments to the W14 car. When it comes to changes to the floor, when it comes to changes to chassis, maybe even wings, we are going to be seeing a new car for Mercedes, and I think it's going to be very, very special, and Red Bull better watch out what's coming for them. So thanks so much for watching today's video, guys, and I'll see you soon. Peace.